Are you guys ready to take a peek inside the most feared family in Mafia history? It's time for the most terrifying bloodline in Mafia history. Number 8. Joseph Barbera. Let's start this list off with the acting boss of the Bonanno crime family, Joseph Barbera. He was born in Brooklyn, New York on June 23, 1947, and he has always been involved in organized crime, ever since he was just a young punk running errands for his father, who was an underboss of the Lucchese crime family. When his father passed away, Joe took over the position of underboss. After the boss of the Bonanno family, Philip Rusty Rustelli, went to prison, Barbera became the acting boss of the family, while Anthony Santero temporarily took over as underboss. On August 10, 2006, both Barbera and Santaro were indicted on racketeering charges, which ended up being the first time that two bosses of the same mafia family were indicted at the same time. Both men pleaded guilty to lesser charges and were sentenced to 5 years in prison, but they were released after serving only 26 months. In 2012, Barbera officially became the boss of the Bonanno family after Santoro retired. To this day, he is still the boss, even though he has been arrested multiple times. The last arrest was in 2015 for extortion and fraud, which got him sentenced to 4 years in prison. He also had to forfeit his $1 million fortune. Seems like he'll be spending his golden years behind bars. What do you think about that? Number 7. Matteo Madonna. Matteo Madonna was the boss of the Genovese crime family from 1981 to 1991. He was one of the most brutal and violent bosses the Mafia had ever seen. Even his own underboss said that if there was such a thing as a life sentence in the Mafia, then Madonna should be the first to get it. This guy literally lived up to that statement. In 1984, he ordered a massive gang war against the Lucchese crime family. It lasted for years and left many people dead. That same year, he was charged with murder and racketeering, but he was acquitted of all charges. What? In 1985, Madonna survived an attempt on his life when a car drove into his Cadillac, causing a chain reaction that led to a collision with a third vehicle. 2 other people were killed during the accident, but Madonna survived, and so did the intended hitman in the other car. But we have no idea who ordered the hit on Madonna or why. It's still a mystery. In 1988, he tried to order a hit on a federal judge who had sentenced one of his associates to 100 hours of community service. Yeah, he wasn't happy about that apparently. The judge's police bodyguards ended up thwarting the hit. In 1991, he suffered another failed attempt on his life when someone shot at him while he was driving. Finally, in 1991, he was convicted of racketeering and served 4 years in prison. Once he was out, he tried to get back into the family business, but he was arrested again for trying to extort money from a strip club owner. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison, but he was released in 2006. He spent his remaining days running a gambling crew until he was arrested once again in 2011 for illegal gambling. He died in prison on January 29, 2020. Number 6. Francis Russo. Francis Russo is the former boss of the Lucchese crime family, and he's been called one of the most powerful mobsters in Mafia history. He was born in 1932 in Manhattan and joined the Mafia as a teenager. By age 23, he became a made man in the family, and by age 26, he was already a capo in the family, so you can tell he moved up fast. He became acting boss of the family when Anthony "Fat Tony" Salerno was sent to prison, but he was never officially made boss. Instead, Victor Orena officially became the boss of the family. Russo was close to becoming the official boss himself in 1985, but he backed out at the last minute to avoid testifying at an upcoming trial. He was the underboss of the family for almost 40 years until 2008, when he retired. He now lives in a halfway house in Staten Island. No, 5. John Gotti. John Gotti is known as the Dapper Don. He was the boss of the Gambino crime family from 1986 to 1990. He was known for his expensive suits and his flashy lifestyle, which was a stark contrast to the stereotypical mafia image of the time. He liked to live large. He was also known for ordering hits on many rival mafia bosses, which led to several gang wars. He was eventually arrested and convicted of racketeering in 1992 and sentenced to life in prison. He was later convicted of murder and drug trafficking and was given an additional 24 years to his life sentence. He died in prison on June 10, 2002. No. 4. Michael Francesi. Michael Francesi is currently the acting boss of the Genovese crime family, which makes him the most powerful mafia boss today. He was born in 1944 in Manhattan and became a member of the Genovese family as a teenager. He worked his way up the ranks and became capo of a crew. In Brooklyn, in 1978 and 1997, he was arrested for murder and racketeering and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. But he was released in 2015. Now he runs the Genovese crime family, which means he's the most powerful mafia boss right now. No pressure, Mike. No. 3. Carmine Galante. Carmine Galante was the boss of the Bonanno crime family from 1964 to 1979. He was known for his brutality and violence and was involved in many gang wars. In 1979, he was shot and killed by members of the Colombo crime family in Brooklyn. The reason for his murder was because he was trying to expand the Bonanno family's territory into areas controlled by the Colombo family. The attack happened outside of Galante's home, and he was taken to the hospital where he later died. The investigation into his murder led to the arrest of several Colombo family members and associates, but no one was ever convicted. This case remains unsolved to this day. No. 2. Carlo Gambino. Carlo Gambino was the boss of the Gambino crime family from 1957 until his death in 1976. He was one of the most powerful and influential mafia bosses in history, and he played a major role in the development of organized crime in the United States. Under his leadership, the Gambino crime family grew to become the largest and most powerful of the 5 families in New York. He was known for his intelligence and his ability to operate in the shadows, which made him very difficult to detect and bring down. During his reign, the Gambino family became heavily involved in various criminal activities, including extortion, loan sharking, and drug trafficking. Gambino himself was a major player in the narcotics trade, and he is believed to have been responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people. Despite his reputation for violence, Gambino was also a shrewd businessman who knew how to make money in legitimate and illegitimate ways. He owned a number of legitimate businesses, including construction companies and restaurants, which he used to launder money and fund his criminal activities. One of Gambino's most notable acts was his involvement in the Lufthansa heist, which saw a group of thieves steal $6 million in valuables. From a New York airport in 1978, the crime was one of the largest in U.S. history, and it is believed that Gambino was the mastermind behind it. Throughout his career, Gambino was able to evade law enforcement, despite being a target of the FBI for many years. He was only arrested a handful of times, and he was never convicted of a crime. He died in 1976 at the age of 66, but his legacy continues to be felt in the world of organized crime. No. 1. Vito Genovese. Vito Genovese is considered to be one of the most powerful and influential mafia bosses of all time. He was the boss of the Genovese crime family, originally known as the Luciano crime family. From 1957 until his death in 1969, Genovese was born in Italy in 1897 and immigrated to the United States as a young man. He quickly became involved in organized crime and rose through the ranks of the Luciano crime family. In 1935, he was convicted of selling narcotics and sentenced to 15 years in prison. However, he was released early in 1942 due to good behavior. During his time in prison, Genovese became close friends with fellow mobster Charles "Lucky" Luciano, who would later become known as the most powerful mafia boss of all time. When Luciano was released from prison in 1946, he and Genovese resumed their criminal activities together. They quickly became the most powerful crime bosses in New York City, and they dominated the city as Underworld for several years. However, in 1957, Luciano was arrested on charges of conspiracy and was sentenced to 50 years in prison. This time, Genovese took over the family and became the most powerful mafia boss in the country. Under his leadership, the family expanded its criminal activities into new areas, including Las Vegas, Nevada, and Havana, Cuba. He was also involved in a number of high-profile crimes, including the murder of a New York City detective and the theft of millions of dollars from a Brooklyn armored car company. Despite his reputation for violence and brutality, Genovese was also a shrewd businessman who knew how to operate in the legitimate economy. He owned a number of legitimate businesses, including restaurants and nightclubs, which he used to launder money and fund his criminal activities. Despite his success, Genovese was eventually brought down by law enforcement. In 1962, He was convicted of narcotics trafficking and conspiracy and sentenced to 15 years in prison. However, he was released on parole in 1969. Unfortunately, he didn't stay out for long. He died of a heart attack later that same year at the age of 72. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then check out our other videos. We have a ton of great ones coming up.